Welcome everyone to It Tastes Different Gaming Appetizers, and tonight Nintendo did it again. Nintendo has officially shut down Tropic Haze. If you remember, a little over a week ago, Nintendo was suing Tropic Haze for their Yuza emulator because it is basically the leader out there of Switch emulation. At least publicly, not in the public knowledge, it is the leader of Switch emulation. But not only did Tropic Haze shut down Yuza, they also shut down Citra, which is their 3DS emulator. They agreed to pay Nintendo $2.4 million in damages and halt all work on Yuza and ceased hosting it, distributing its code or anything else. So Nintendo scared the pants off them, and they didn't think they had a leg to stand on. They even made an official post what Yuza did about all of it. The source code for both Citra and Yuza were removed from GitHub. So if you were trying to get your way out there to get it, you're kind of SOL. I'm a little torn on this, right? Emulation is one of those things that I think, obviously there has been court cases that claim that emulation is kind of a gray area where it's legal. But from my understanding, the way that Yuza and Citra were doing it is they allowed to bypass some of the securities in place on the cart so they could, rip the cart and do what they needed to do, allowing emulation is kind of one of those weird things. Like there really is no reason for emulation. This is probably going to not come out great, but emulation on current gen or even last gen, items, right? Because I'm not going to have problems buying a Switch or a 3DS or an Xbox Series S or X, or an Xbox One or a PS4 or PS5. I'm really probably not going to have problems finding those. But like older older consoles like the Nintendo, Super Nintendo, all that stuff, all the super old stuff, Neo Geos, Saturns, Dreamcast, you name it. That stuff's not as easy to come by. And if you own those games, then you should be able to play them. Now, my thought process has always been Nintendo and some of these old school developers need to get with the times to start selling ROMs, and officially supported emulators. I mean, there's people out there that would love to have a library of emulated games they can play, no matter where they're at. I just want to load them on my PC, load them up on my Raspberry Pi, load them up on freaking hardware I built out in my garage, whatever, and all I need is an emulator to run them. But these companies are willing to just say, no, we'll sue you. And because in the past, emulators have been gray area where it's not illegal to own or use an emulator, but it's illegal to play something on those that you do not own, right? So no circumventing the security to, play current gen stuff. So that's really where Yuza got in trouble, because Yuza was allowing it to play Switch. It was an emulator for Switch games, so it was bypassing the security of the cart, and basically you can play it all you wanted. So Nintendo claims that they had lost millions of dollars because of Yuza, allowing people to never have to buy a Switch game, but yet to play the Switch games, and now they're gone. I read an article like not even yesterday where a crap ton emulators have popped up in the place of Yuza and Citra already. It's like Hydra. I chop off one head, 8 more pop up, just there's always going to be more, because there is and there is a place for these, and the game industry needs to get their shit together. Nintendo, Sega, all those big name old school guys just need to get their shit together and start selling ROMs and say, oh, cool, you want to buy, not in the fashion where you're going to charge me $60 for a damn ROM, because that doesn't make sense. I could probably go find the cart for the game somewhere if I had a system for $20, $5 or something, but be realistic, right? It also kind of breeds into where, to me, it also kind of shows that there's a forum out there, people who would probably pay a subscription to have access to an emulator and a plethora of your older games. So with this news that Yuza is shutting down in Citra, have either of you guys used those? Are you playing ROMs? Do you like ROMs? Do you have ROMs? Nick? Where are you at on the fence with this one?
As far as Yuza developer goes, I mean, yeah, they just got the spotlight on them, right? Because there are 1,000 of those out there. They were just the most popular one, and it is bad that they were able to bypass the carts in order to play, right? But I 100% agree with you, Pat, that game companies and stuff, like if Nintendo is going to go after all these emulators and emulation sites and ROMs and everything like that, and put the legal hammer down on it, then you need to come up with a solution, because clearly there's people out there looking for a solution. Now, newer stuff, yeah, they are just trying to pirate that stuff, right? But older stuff, right? NES, Super Nintendo, N64, like Game Boy Color, all these, like, you know, those emulate. I mean, not the trickle down crap that Nintendo's doing on their online servers. There's barely a game that they sprinkle in every once in a while. Not talking about that. Like, then clearly there is a group of consumers out there, gamers, that want to play these games and want to have access to these games. And you, as the developer, being Nintendo in this case, are not providing that service. You provide that service. I've messed around with emulators and ROMs, and I enjoy them. I like them for older stuff because it's a lot easier to get and play older games through an emulator and a ROM than it is to go out and find a copy of some of these games. And some of these games, depending on what game they are super expensive, right? And it's like, but even if a company said, okay, cool, here's our official Nintendo, Sony, Xbox, whoever, official emulator, and you can go buy, and we have a store where you can go and purchase ROMs, or like you said, maybe a subscription service where you get to use the emulator and these ROMs as long as you own the subscription or whatever. Even I would be like, all right, cool, I'll do that. Because if anybody's out there and they've ever tried to search for emulators and ROMs, that is like a little sketchy, right? Knowing what you're not knowing what you're downloading and hoping you're not getting a bunch of malware or viruses or whatever else on there. So it's a very sketchy time to try to go out there and try to find that stuff. And so if I can get something that's more official, that's just from the official, Nintendo or Microsoft or whoever, then I would be all down to go out there and buy their ROMs and buy their emulators. I'm really surprised developers haven't done this for their older stuff. I know they want to try to do it with their Nintendo, especially with the Nintendo Online service. But the problem with the Nintendo Online service is, one, it sucks. And two, the games that they are putting out there are once in a great while do we get like I said, a sprinkling of one or two games. And it's like, it's too slow. People want a massive library that they know exists. And if you can't get that out there quick enough, the masses are going to go look elsewhere. And that's where emulators and ROMs come into play. Right. And so, yeah, I mean, I understand Nintendo trying to protect its intellectual property, but at the same time, there is a want for this, type of emulation and ROM out there on the market. So why not snag that? I bet that could be a very lucrative market if they tapped into it. For all of them, not just Nintendo, but for everyone. Like if Microsoft put out an Xbox emulator and said you can download, I know they did that backwards compatibility, but they could have saved themselves some times. Hell, half the games or more of them are already freaking emulated. Just and there's already Xbox emulators out there. Just partner up with one of them, make it the official Xbox emulator, and sell your ROMs on there. Right? Like, here, you want to play backwards compatibility? Great. You got a computer? Go download it and play all the games there. And Sony could do the same thing with PlayStation and PlayStation 2 and stuff like that. Like, I don't know. It's a no-brainer to me because people are going to emulate and they're going to get ROMs and stuff like that anyway. They're going to do it anyway. So why not just give them the tools to do it legally and you get the money instead of them going behind your back and downloading it and playing it that way, right? Because people are going to do it regardless of no matter how many people Nintendo sues or whatever the case, people are still going to do that. Developers are still going to create emulators. It's still going to happen. You can't close the entire thing down. So you might as well just, join them and not try to sue the pants out of every single one that's out there, because you're You're going to be suing everybody, right? Shane, what do you think, bud?
Yeah, I'm kind of heads or tails on it. So, if I was to look at it as a business aspect, I can understand wanting to protect it, but I can also understand wanting to make money off of it. Why not create a partnership to where your partner does all the goddamn work and you get 70% of the profit? Charge $1, that's 70 cents a download for, the original Mario or whatever. It's a missed opportunity, in my opinion. They partner up with a few reliable people, basically contract it and say, hey, we are not responsible for what they do. But you just say, hey, you just make sure your stuff is, compliant. It's clean, not to worry about, viruses and all that stuff and whatever. That it makes a little money off of it. You're right, Nick. It's too expensive to go out and buy those games. I mean, if you went out and tried to buy Bad News Baseball for the original Nintendo, I bet that thing's $300, and it's nuts. But if I can play it on an emulator, great. Now, I don't do emulations because 1, viruses, 2, I'm not that smart. So I don't know how to do those. I don't want to mess with doing those, and I don't want to screw up my computer. But I'm not a big tech guy, so that's a lot on me. But on the other hand, it's my toys. I don't want you giving my toys out. This is mine. I own this. I understand that, and if that's what they choose, that's what they choose. But it's just such a missed opportunity. I think Nintendo put out, I believe it was the original and a Super Nintendo mini console. Why not just develop an emulator version of that where you could just, here's our category, download it, go for it, put it on a thumb drive, whatever. Do that, make money off of that, because people like Nick, and somewhat of myself would be all over that. Pat wouldn't, because he's a graphics snob, but he might get might get a hankering to jump back in there and play something that just blew his childhood away. Then he'll be disappointed because remember, oh God, this really did suck. But it's a missed opportunity for Nintendo. Instead of going after, find out who's doing it the best and maybe come up with an agreement. That's just me. I don't know what kind of employee setup this company has. I hopefully, employees that they do have, if it's just one guy, great. If it's 20 guys working this thing, I'm sorry if y'all are going to lose your job or whatnot, but if you go against Nintendo, you're screwed. I mean, Nintendo is the evil corporation of the video game market when it comes to their toys. You don't touch Nintendo toys. Nintendo allows you to play with them, but when they're ready to put them back in the box, you don't get to touch it. So, unfortunately, Nintendo don't mess around. Get it, don't play that. So it is, just is what it is. So, but hopefully Nintendo will finally pull their head out of their ass, and maybe Microsoft and Sony, and say, you know what, guys, look, we have a back catalog. Microsoft has especially, done all this back catalog stuff. Maybe they'll just, get together with somebody and say, look, you know what? They want our toys. Let's let them play with it, but let's do it in a way that makes us money, protects the consumer from viruses and things like that. It'd be a win-win, because the original PlayStation 1 and 2 catalog is ginormous, and it had some amazing stuff. Nintendo, the original 64, the Cube, had great stuff. So let us play with those toys again. And let's do it in a safe way. You got to practice safety with your old toys. So, but I think that's what I think. And that's all I think. So what do you think, Pat?
Yeah, as of I've already stated my piece multiple times over. So, I kind of, like I said, it's hard to hide what they're doing with the 3DS and the Switch, right? Like, you're pirating. That's just plain and simple. And that's bad. That's bad. Yuza should have known better that they were gonna get the Nintendo was gonna come after them. Nintendo is very Sue happy, and everybody knows that, right? They know if you don't touch Nintendo's toys, they will protect their IPs like no other. So there was only, it is what it is on that one. And they had some code in there that was doing some stuff. I imagine if they would have had a few pieces of the code not doing the bypassing and the security and all kinds of things like that, they might have been okay. They might have had a leg to stand on and be like, hey, we didn't build any of that in there, so you have to come with a legitimate copy or something, but we know, everybody knows, the Pirate Bay exists for a reason, and things like that. And places like that exist for a reason for people to get stuff. But I'll be honest, I would probably start my ROM collection, back over. I haven't done one in many, many years, but if I had some stuff and I could get copies of stuff that I wanted to actually play at a reasonable price, maybe build my Raspberry Pi emulator back up or something, right? You never know. But, well, it is what it is, and they didn't have a leg to stand on. Nintendo came a-calling, and they folded up quicker than a lawn chair. So, what do you got? Are you guys got anything else on this one before we wrap it up? This episode's folding faster than they did.
No, I mean, but I agree. I would love to build a Raspberry Pi with a whole ROM station, especially with our light guns, have like a light gun, like a whole arcade thing, if you had like the ROMs and stuff like that. But yeah, that'd be cool.
You had me at pie.
Wrong kind of pie.
Oh.
All right. Well, let us know, what are your thoughts on emulation? What do you think that the big boys should jump in the pool and start their own emulation and subscription and selling of ROMs? What do you think? What do you think about Yuza and Citra shutting down? Do you think they had any legal chance of staying alive if they didn't just fold up really quick? So let us know what you think down in the comments, and please subscribe if you're not. We need the help. We need the numbers. We've been doing this for quite a while now, and we're still trying to build our base up, so please help us out. And we hope you enjoyed this episode and hope to catch you in the next one.
See ya.